Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast. I'm here with my new friend, Brian Beers. I was hoping we were just going to be drinking beers today, but we could only schedule this in to record at like 9 in the morning. So no beers, no cigars. And I'm sure you get that a lot, Brian. Like your podcast, your kind of mission is about helping entrepreneurs, private investments, infinite banking. I know you've got a pretty crazy success story with the family business, but how often do people tune into your podcast just thinking they're going to hear about different beer selections?
I think every single week. That is the expectation. Yep.
Perfect. All right. So we'll have to have you on for an evening interview where we can drink like a stout or an IPA or something.
Yeah, that was I interviewed Jamie Groomer recently, and his recommendation was every question we have to chug another beer. And then obviously by question 6 or 7, they're getting pretty interested and we're probably falling over. So
yeah, off the rails. And I'm a little under the weather, so you're going to be doing a lot of the talking. We'll probably keep this one a bit short just because my voice is giving out on me. Too many cigars, too much talking the last 3 weeks, and then the holidays kind of beat me up. But I know where you kind of started in business was, your family had a business that you've scaled pretty exponentially, and it seems to be going still through massive growth. So can you talk a little bit about kind of your background in business, whether it was a formal education, school of hard knocks, working under your dad? Can you tell us kind of your origin story in business, where you were, where you're at, and kind of where you're going?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I went to University of Miami for in college down in Florida. I studied entrepreneurship, finance, general business. And, after college, I came back and I joined our family's business, which was running Midas automotive repair franchises. We had my dad started in the 70s, grew it from one location to about 6, 7, 8. They bought some, sold some. And at that time, it was about 2010 and, business wasn't good. Obviously the recession there had hurt. They were thinking about selling the business at the time. So when I joined, I knew nothing about cars. I know a little bit more now. But I learned the business from the ground up, just, working in the shops, working with the guys. At the end of the day, we fix cars, but we're in the people business. It's all about just communicating. Someone comes in with a problem. It's our goal is to fix the problem, right? Most people don't really care about the intricacies. They just want a safe car and kind of get the hell out of there. And so anyway, I learned the business and we started growing. My brother joined he's my partner now. And, we now have 21 locations as of today. We'll have 3 more under acquisition probably by the time this launches. And, we got plans to get to probably about 30 or so, all in the Philadelphia and New Jersey markets. And so we've significantly grown the business and it's great.
So 2 things I know nothing about: franchises and auto repair. So this is brand new territory for me. Can you explain to the listener kind of, and you don't have to share any of the particular numbers you're not comfortable with on Midas's royalties or whatnot, but can you explain to the lay person like myself, what is a franchise? Like, why is it Midas Repair Shop and not, the Beers Family Repair Shop? Like, what's the how does that work? I don't even quite understand a franchise, other than somebody tried to talk me into buying a Supercuts franchise one time, which I didn't do, and it turns out I should have. But anyway, tell us about franchises. What education do we need?
Yeah, sure. So, there's first of all, there's a couple different, I would say, kind of strict levels of expectation. At the end of the day, there's a proven business model out there that someone else has created, and we are then operating that model in that business. So if you're, a lot of food, most fast food that people know, Taco Bell, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, they're all franchises. So they create this concept like Chick-fil-A, and then they have people who then operate them, right? And they're given the playbook of, this is, how you should make a sandwich. This is, what the customer experience should be. And it's their goal to step by step start to implement it. And so, and then in addition for kind of the rights to run that brand, they pay a royalty, which is a percentage of the sales that goes back to the franchisor to then operate the business. And usually half of it or so goes to marketing. And that's what you see on national TV. And so in ours, Midas is, I would say, a little bit looser than maybe a Chick-fil-A. And we like to think it at the end of the day, it's our business. It's Brian, it's the Beers family, right? Chain of stores. And we carry like the Midas flag. And so, we have the flexibility to operate how we want to. We can compensate our guys how we want to. But when people come in, it's still the Midas brand. We participate in the advertising. And so we can create the cultures that we want that's unique to us, but then we kind of have the benefit of, this bigger brand that people know and trust, and they can stand behind if they have an issue, right? There's like someone else to call versus, a small independent shop. It's just kind of the owner and it stops there. And I think that's in part why, the brands exist.
Yeah. So is that really what it's about? Because I think you nailed something there with the brand awareness. Like if I get a flat tire, or I think I've got a flat tire and I'm driving down the street and there's Bill's Auto Repair and Midas, I don't even know why my mind works this way. I'm probably going to make a right into the Midas shop versus a left into the, Bill's Nevada Repair or something like that, So is it the brand awareness? Because I guess what I'm thinking when it comes to like Chick-fil-A, I get it. Like there's supply lines and like, depending on what Chick-fil-A I go to, I want my chicken tenders to taste exactly the same. So I kind of get the concept in like the food business where I'm eating that thing consistently and I want it to all taste the same. I want McDonald's fries to taste the same, whether I'm in Moscow or Berlin or New York. But with tires, I guess I just don't really get it because it's like, I have no clue what, as long as they're filled with air, like I don't know shit about tire A versus tire B. So why does the franchise model matter in that industry that people are maybe interacting with less frequently? Like I'll maybe end up in an auto repair store once a year or something versus Chick-fil-A, if I'm being honest, I'm there once a week.
Yeah. I mean, for us as I guess the owner, I mean, you answered your own question because you turned into the brand, right? There's something about a brand that you trust, and the quick decision that you see it all the time. It's been around since the 1950s or whatever it's been, and there's just like a trust factor that people have, and I think a lot of it is just they just know it's more than just a single location, and that there's history behind it, and so and for us, it's resources too. I mean, we're part of one of the largest integrated tire companies in the world. This company called TBC that is half owned by Michelin. And so, our acquisition on tires, for example, is the same as you probably have like Big O's or NTBs or Tire Kingdoms, right? We're all in the same like buying network through the parent company. So for us, like our acquisition cost is very good. So we can sell them pretty much at the same price versus a smaller guy with not as much buying power, maybe have a higher cost and supply issues, I'd say. At least specific to tires.
That makes a lot of sense. So there is some like economy of scale where obviously if the parent company can buy 1 million tires, they're going to get a much better deal than, like I said, Joe's corner repair shop that buys maybe 100 tires at a time.
Sure. Yep.
Cool. And I notice a bunch of books on your shelves behind you are also some of my favorite books. I think I see Traction. I think I see Essentialism. I think I see some other stuff. And it's funny because you mentioned not really growing up in the auto repair business and having to learn it after college. But at the end of the day, like a business is kind of a business, right? You have people, you have marketing, you have cash flow. It's like, what was that experience for you as a young, fresh out of college person coming in to kind of, at a time when your parents were thinking about selling the business, just cashing out their chips and probably retiring? What was that experience for you, like in your 20s coming in and be like, no, I just got a business school or a business degree at University of Miami. What was that experience like being like the young guy on the block trying to, maybe, I don't know what the dynamic was like, teach a dog old tricks with your parents, read those books, reinvigorate a business? Like, I imagine that's a weird dynamic.
Yeah. And being the boss's kid or whatever is like, there's obviously a stigma about that. But, I overcame it by just being a hard worker and I think authentically caring. Like I wanted to understand the business. I mean, I was working the same hours everyone else was, trying to learn how to change tires or learning how to sell jobs or learning how, spark plugs worked or whatever it was. And I think that, means a lot. I think when I'm shoulder to shoulder, not trying to, just be the dad's kid or whatever. So I, hard work, number one. And then number two, it's starting to add value, reading books, I talked to a lot of other, owners and figured out, what are they doing to succeed? And then trying to take those new ideas and then apply it, to our organization. I think that's key. And I think people, see value in that as well, that we're, trying to help the business, trying to grow and trying to bring new ideas. And, I think just step by step, you just start putting it together. That everything's done before, right? There's no new ideas. It's just a matter of finding what other people have done and success leaves clues, right? And we want to find those successes and then figure out how can we apply it to our business. And, I think what I've learned over the years is to simplify things too. I think I'm nature, like I like numbers and data, and sometimes overcomplicate things. And a lot of these books, I mean, Traction, we hired a implementer now to help us like go full board for the next 2 years into it. Is we got to just simplify everything, simplify the process, our message, and that's what I'm learning now, especially as we start to scale. The more we scale, the more simple we need to be as managers. Otherwise, it's people just like don't know what to do, and then they'll just do whatever they think is best, and doesn't necessarily always align.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about times that I've interacted with auto repair companies, and I can't put or even purchased a car. Anything in the auto industry kind of tends to have a little bit of a stigma surrounded around it, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I can't put my finger on it, but I know that I've walked out of, car dealership maintenance A or car dealership maintenance B or, Midas versus Firestone or whatnot. I know I've had that feeling before of like satisfaction versus dissatisfaction, but I can't put my finger on what the thing was. Like, I can't say like, oh, the guy who rung me up didn't have great customer service, or they didn't explain what was actually going on with my car, and then I got like a $600 bill. I can't really point to the thing that made me comfortable or uncomfortable. But maybe you can like glean some insight here. Like, what is the thing in the car industry, automotive repair industry, that makes your clients more comfortable, 5-star review, come back to you guys, versus the person that leaves and is like, oh, I feel like I got ripped off there. Like, what is that thing? Because I can't put my finger on it. I don't know anything about the industry.
It's communication. Like, at the end of the day, we all buy the same parts, right? From the same vendors, from the same manufacturers. We employ the same technicians, right? Like, the prices are generally the same. Yeah, some people, may be more expensive here or there. But at the end of the day, I mean, did we solve the problem, right? Did we communicate effectively in terms of, we have this thing we look for is like, what did you come in for? Like, did we solve your initial problem first? So if you come in for a grinding brake issue and the first thing we talk about is like your tires are bald, you're gonna be like, well, what about my brakes? Like, you're thinking about your brakes, right? And if we off, maybe your tires are worse, right? Maybe your brakes are totally fine and your tires are, down to its steel cords and extremely dangerous. But
Right.
It's kind of like the expectation though is, and this is what we teach our guys. And, we're not perfect by any means, but this is what we teach, which is first solve the initial concern. Like, you came in for a brake issue. The first thing we should be talking about is brakes. And then we're going to talk about, anything that is then a safety concern that you really should get done. So that would be, hey, your tires are bald and the steel belts are showing, right? Then it would be future things like, hey, this is like, you don't need it today, but maybe it's, this front end component is starting to have some play, in a couple months, you're going to want to probably get this done. And then we can talk about maintenance, right? Your filters, fluids, light bulbs, whatever. And I think if we follow that order, we tell them everything. That's what really helps. I mean, commonly, we've gotten complaints where like someone, brakes were getting low and we didn't tell them about it. Right. And then the next time they came in, they needed them. And they're like, I was just here like 6 months ago. Why didn't you tell me then that they're getting low? And so I think a lot of people, want the full picture. And I think sometimes it's us maybe being afraid to just, hey, here's what the car needs. Like, you can choose to get it here or not, but you should know, what's going on with it. Yeah. And I think there's definitely like a stigma and a lot of it's just the presentation. Like, if you build up a $2,000 ticket and like present it like, hey, you need all this stuff done today. And you feel like, well, my car's like unsafe or like a piece of crap, versus that same $2,000 ticket presented in a way that's here's what you came in for, here's what you're going to need in the near future, and then here's some other recommendations you can do down the line, based on whatever your manufacturer recommends. That same amount of work, right? The same price, the perception is going to be a lot different based on how it's delivered. And all of it just comes down to the communication that we have with them. So that's what we try to teach as much as we can. And, obviously the bigger we get, the harder it is to enforce consistency. And that's where I think traction and a number of these other things are going to come into play.
Yeah. It's amazing that you mentioned communication, because it's the same thing. I coach loan officers in addition to being a loan officer. And every time we have a disgruntled client or I've got a loan officer who's got their world on fire, it always boils down to the communication. Like, hey, the deal was going to close late. It was always going to close late. There was a problem. It was a tough deal. If we would have just communicated it earlier, things would have been better, right? And then, of course, there are some realtors that say, oh, just communicate with me early and often. And then they blow you up all the time anyway and tell you how horrible you are. And it's like, well, I guess I shouldn't have told you anything. But for the most part, I feel like so many problems can be solved with communication. So in your journey, whether it was, college, practical application, now helping you, your brother, your dad grow this company pretty dramatically, what's been your favorite lesson or book read or coaching seminar you've attended? I always wonder, like, what's the knowledge that's been dropped on you that's like, oh, that was really a game changer for us in our business?
More number. I mean, the number one's behind me. I think, I mean, a great one for me. I have a couple, like, personally. One of them is What It Takes. Have you read that one?
No.
Steve Schwartzman, the Blackstone, BlackRock, whatever, hedge fund. And his message in there is it takes the same amount of energy, effort, and time to do something small as it does to do something big. And the idea is you think bigger, you act bigger, you're going to get a much bigger return for it. And so, I think we got that similar approach when we look at, like, hey, we could go out and buy one store, right? And the process we have to follow is the exact same as if we bought this other franchise, like the 7 stores the guy owns, right? It's the same. We have a purchase agreement. We have a note with him, most likely, right? We've got to go through the approval process. We got to get leases transferred. We got to onboard employees. Like, none of that changes, right? Whether it's 1 or 6 or 7. So,
Right.
To go bigger for us then is, it's more scalable. And, even though we're looking now to get to 30, add another 50% more. And it's like, at the end of the day, I'm still going to work 40 hours. Right. But to think bigger, to say, all right, now we can apply all these things we've learned and, we'll get a 50% increase in our income and hopefully help more cars and help more employees with a better, like, lifestyle. And anyway, so that's been a big one. Just to, hey, think big, like, you're going to get bigger results.
And the name of that book was What It Takes?
Yeah, it's this one.
What It Takes,
Yeah,
Steve Schwarzman. All right, I'm gonna read that next. I like that.
Yep. Blackstone guy.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Elon Musk thing, right? You're like, well, I could make battery packs, or I could make battery packs for luxury homes, or I can make battery packs for luxury homes and luxury cars, or I can make battery packs for luxury homes and luxury cars and things that are going to take us to Mars. And it's just like, you just keep thinking bigger. And it's like, well, it's the same amount of engineering and the same amount of work, just with some extra components and more, just another cadre of great people in these companies. And it's a really great message. So thanks for sharing that.
Yep. Recently, Who Not How, by Ben Hardy, Dan Sullivan. And that one's, all about, instead of asking the question, how am I supposed to do this? You ask, who can help me do this? And that power is built with teams of people. And if you want to do big things, like the book talks about, you can't do it yourself. You got to build a team. You got to have systems. You got to have structure. And it really comes down to, everyone has different skill sets, and you can get a lot more done by asking the question who rather than how. And so we're trying to teach that more and implement it more. I used to be, the person when I had 6 stores and I was the general manager over all of them. I was the how and the who, I guess, for everything. And now as we've grown and we scaled and trying to figure out, we keep adding more who's, right?
Yeah.
And for me, my challenge is just, holding those people accountable and having them, operate just as I would do it. So
I love it. And I know one of the things that you've gotten passionate about kind of as you guys have grown the business, and there's obviously more money being spun off and kind of more wealth being accumulated, is, where do we invest that money so we have the greatest returns and some control over it, not just, hand it over to a stockbroker and be like, great, I'll trust you. Hopefully it's all there and it's doubled a couple times in the next 30 years. You've talked about kind of private equity, private investment banking. We can go any direction you want to go there that you're comfortable talking about. Where has your journey taken you on, like, okay, cool, we're growing a business, we're growing wealth, we've got a lot of money being spun off by these franchises. Now, where do we put it? So maybe the thought process there and any direction you want to go on that conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think, the number one best place to invest your money is your own business to start, right? If we have the opportunity to, add stores within our footprint or, acquire the real estate that we occupy, that is the number one best ROI. I mean, we can, actually we do a lot of seller finance deals where we, we'll buy a business and we'll get the seller of the business to hold the note. So we don't have to go to the bank. I've only gone to the bank once, and buying whatever 20 plus locations. And, that, I mean, we sometimes we'll be 10% down and we'll get like a, 800% back in the first year, right? Because it's low money down, and then we're buying the cash flow and we increase it and roll it in. So number one, our own business. Number two, like I said, we can buy the real estate that we occupy. We believe in terms of real estate being a long-term wealth building vehicle by through cash flow appreciation, paying down debt. And so that's the first one. I'd say the second investment I'm going to make is in myself. Is through personal development, through coaching, through I joined GoBundance, a mastermind for entrepreneurs back in beginning of 2020, and that has led me down an extremely profitable journey and it starts with investing in yourself. And I think you got to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in self, who else are you going to bet on? And so, that's opened the doors to, being on this podcast, launching my own podcast, hiring a business coach, that business coach helping me overcome my own like limiting beliefs and thoughts to allow me to then open up to kind of, go into this uncharted territory. And, growth happens like right outside your comfort zone. And so if you want to grow as a human, you have to get uncomfortable, and you have to be okay with the concept of being uncomfortable. And so, for me, like I said, hiring a coach, he led me to starting a podcast. And, even that, like, I'm sure you, like the first time you recorded a podcast, I'm sure you were super nervous and, were afraid. You had all these fears. If anybody going to listen, is anybody going to like, am I going to say something stupid? Like they say, or right too many times. But at the end of the day, like, you get past all that, and then you get super comfortable with it, and it grows and it opens up these doors. And so, I mean, all of that for me was an investment in myself to hire a coach who then pushed me to, do things that I wanted, but I was uncomfortable with it. And so, anyway, so yeah, personal development, I think, is a huge one that a lot of people overlook, and they see it as an expense. Like, what kind of value am I going to get out of this? But, the investment return is sometimes immediate, but it's sometimes, over the long term as well.
Got it. And then, I love the idea of invest in yourself, invest in your business. It is funny how many people will, buy stock or invest blindly in a company that they don't even know how to read the financials. But the thought of putting $5,000 into a startup of their own, or, I have a client who I've talked to about their personal finances a lot, just because we've become friends over the years. And he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving $1 million from this brokerage to this brokerage to this brokerage. I really wish I could start this other business. And I'm like, can't you start that other business for like $100,000? They're like, yeah, but that's $100,000. What if I lose it? I'm like, well, what if you put $1 million in the market and we have like a 30% correction next month? Like, are you more comfortable betting on the current kind of frothy asset prices in the stock market, or betting $100,000 on yourself? I don't know if he's actually done it. It's been a couple months since we talked, but I was like, come on, man. At his wealth, $100,000 is a lot of money, but it's not that much money to him. I'm like, do it. It's like, it's a passion project. It could be an awesome business. It's not going to take a bunch of your time.
Yep.
So I hope he did it, but that's great. And then what about, when you do start to have cash left over? Obviously, if you can buy real estate, amazing. Some people don't have the finances to plunk down a large chunk of change for down payment and maintenance and things like that. But where else are you putting money? Or maybe you can even just define this idea of infinite banking.
So a couple different things. I think through my journey, I've learned, really it's through being in GoBundance and being around, guys like yourself and a number of others that, there's like an alternative way to manage your money, right? Most people think like your friend, right? Where they make money, they invest in the stock market, they're extremely active in their business, but then when it comes to their wealth, they're extremely passive. So they work so hard to make money, right? Like it's me, we're buying stores, we're whatever, doing all this marketing, we're making all this money, and then I just take it and I auto invest it into a Vanguard account, and it feels like super passive, right? But like, as an entrepreneur and a business person, I can take control of my own money, and I can manage my money like it's a business if I choose to. And so, I'm working on kind of creating the system, and this is just like how I think that, I can look at managing my money through the same lens that I look through as I manage my business, which is, I want to have like a vision, right? In our business, we have a vision of where we want to go, what our strategy is going to be. In managing my money, it's kind of the same thing. Like I want to create a certain lifestyle, which means, I want it to be, passive, and I want it to be, working for me. And I don't want to have to trade time for money on the investment side, right? And that's the lifestyle. And then I'm going to focus on cash flow. Like I'm going to invest in things that produce cash, so then I can reinvest that cash in other investments to create more cash. And you get this compounding effect. And then I'm going to focus on the team. And it's, I talked about the who, not how, or I want to, in my business, we want to surround ourselves with guys who are driven, and they're have high integrity and they're players. And similarly, as you're building your wealth, you got to have this like awesome team of people around you, whether it's other business operators, so sponsors, GPs, syndicators, whatever you want to call them, who run the businesses that we're going to invest in. You got to have a good accountant, and you got to have a good lawyer, and like you got to find out, are these people who are like deal makers, or they deal breakers? Like, are they bringing you deals, or they trying to mess up your deal? And I diversify, just like in my business, through multiple locations, multiple markets, multiple products, right? We diversify to spread out risk. Just like, if I'm controlling my money, I want to diversify and not be 100% into one basket. I'm going to look to diversify through multiple asset classes, and then also, geographically as well. And so anyway, I'm working, like I said, working on the system to how do I apply these same principles and manage my money like it. And so, anyway, I could keep going. Any dialogue on that, or should I go to the next?
The cash flow to me is the most amazing thing. And, this is something that I had not really been introduced to until I think you also know Justin Donnell. He wrote the book, The Lifestyle Investor. I was kind of the way you were talking about, the passive, like, all right, I was massively in debt coming out of 2009. Finally got out of that debt a couple of years ago. Well, I work so hard on my businesses, I'll just save money, and one day it'll all take care of itself. And then about 2 years ago, I was introduced to Justin Donnell, a mutual friend of ours, and he's like, no, you got to be thinking through, just like, you can't just set it and forget it. If you really want to establish wealth, you've got to have these cash flowing assets. So whether that's, traditionally buying real estate that has positive rental income, or you're buying into a property syndicate where there's, positive cash flow coming out. And I can tell you, just in the last couple years, and I don't have a ton of money or a ton of cash, but just kind of repositioning this $25,000 over here, or this $50,000 over here on something that's spinning off cash to add to the principal, to then go reinvest it on the next building to spit. It's like, it's just this hockey stick effect where it's like you're grow. And then every month you're like, whoa, like net worth is really, really positively increasing. And that's not just, riding the wave of low interest rates and good asset prices like in the stock market. That's like actually having your cash create more cash. So maybe you can talk a little bit more, if there's a real world example you'd love to share about some of those cash producing assets. Like, what have you found, or maybe what's some good property investments you've made, or syndicate investments you've made, and like how does that math actually work out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you did a pretty good job on it. And a lot of it is, I think the way you have to set it up, at least for me, like I have like 4 accounts, right? I've got like an operating account. So all my, like, I don't know, I have a specific salary that comes in, and like my expenses go out. And so in and out. And it's like a net zero gain each month. And then I've got like an emergency account, which is whatever, 6-12 months cash, just to be that safety net, an infinite banking policy, which we can talk a little bit more on. And then I've got an investment account. And the idea is that all, like, everything above kind of my living standard to a degree goes into that investment account. And then whenever that gets to whatever threshold, right, 25, 50,000 usually is kind of the minimum would need to be, you deploy it into an asset. And then, whether it's a syndication, we do hard money lending, whether it's, whatever it is, then as that throws back cash, it's going back into that same investment account. So that thing can build up, and, business distributions keep coming in. And then once it hits 25, 50 grand, boom, it's deployed again. And I think the first step is you got to like separate your money into a couple different buckets. Cause if you only had one account that you had to keep how much is my mortgage? How much is my credit card? I got to like save a couple months. And then I have money. Like, there's too many calculations, at least for me, trying to keep it simple.
Me too, totally.
And so I kind of have this one dedicated, like, I know, hey, and my goal was to be cash poor. Like, my goal was to have almost like no money on hand, because I want it all deployed, and I want it to earn interest, and all the gains come back, which I then totally, like, I reinvest. But if it went back into my operating account, my like spending account to a degree, I probably end up spending it. And so, part of the like the wealth formula is just to put as much money of your personal money to use and be cash poor, which is why you have the savings account, which is why you've got some other, maybe more liquid things that you can access if you need it. But the goal really is to make it, to make it work. So anyway, back to your question on some deals I've done. I mean, none of them so far have turned back. Like, the ones I've invested, it actually paid me back the entire principal plus the profit. But I've done a couple deals that have been pretty solid. They're syndications. An apartment building, 250 units in Indiana is one of them. It pays 7%, every month, annualized monthly. And one of these deals it's a really good value add. The rents are like $500, and the plans to get them to 650. And it's to me, it's an easy slam dunk. Like they're going to do it. And I look at other deals versus, where it's like a brand new construction buy, and they're buying it at like a 3.75 cap, and then they want to sell it in 5 years at a 3.8 cap or whatever it is. And I don't know. To me, 5 years from now, are interest rates and cap rates going to be that low? I mean, I don't know. I'm not making that bet though.
Right.
So anyway, I look at things that I like the business plan. They seem realistic to me. And, in terms of returns, I mean, I expect at least somewhere in the 15 to 20%, like average annual return, IRR, or whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah,
So.
a couple things there you mentioned. One, going back to keeping the separate accounts. In our family, my wife is so much more frugal than I am. So I actually don't even have access to that emergency savings account. I just tell her every paycheck, like, hey, take $3,000, $5,000, whatever, put into our like emergency long-term fund. And then one day I asked her and I'm like, hey, what's in that account, by the way? And the number she told me was staggering. And I was like, oh, so this is what happens when I don't have access to my own money. It just gets saved. And so we were able to peel off a chunk of money and invest in a similar property syndicate where exactly, I think we put in, $50,000. They're going to return 7 or 8% a year, like clockwork, so I'll get my $3,400, a year in interest in dividends until they sell the property. And then when they sell the property, presumably there'll be some profit. We'll get all of our initial investment back plus something. And, it'll end up, like you said, annualizing out to 10 or 12% on something that does not feel that risky because it's an amazing asset managed by an amazing person. And, people think that these numbers are really large and maybe they can't ever get there, but it's amazing if you just start peeling off a little bit of your income that you're working so hard for. The money grows quickly. And then you just need access to like some of these deals. We've actually interviewed some people on the show that you could have access to. Just get on their email list and make enough money to be part of their project. It's easier than we think, and it's like that old saying, right? It's easy. It's simple, not easy, to be disciplined. So,
and a lot of it, I think, for people, at least when I was starting it too, there's a number of fears people have to get over. Number one is, I think, the fear that like private investing is a Ponzi scheme. Right. And especially when we talk about, I don't know, the media, the mainstream, like everyone wants your money in Wall Street, and they want the investors who are going to put it in a fund, which takes a percentage, to put in another fund, which takes a percentage. And, they don't want you pulling money out of that to go invest in a syndication. And so, any opportunity I think they have that they can flash Bernie Madoff or whoever up there as like the definition of a Ponzi scheme, they're going to take advantage of that. So number one, there's tons of really good people out there who, both of us are friends with, who, they truly feel that they are like stewards of other people's money. Yep. And that they care more about providing a solid, safe return to the investors than they do profiting. And first of all, there's tons of people out there, like, join communities, I think, is part of I guess one of my advice to help find some of these people. And then it's a matter of underwriting them. Do you like the person? Like, what's their track record? How many deals have they done, like full cycle, or are they brand new and it's like their first deal? What's the best return? What's the worst? What's the average? Is this, have they done this type of deal before? Or is it brand new? I mean, as a business owner, I'm going to interview somebody. I'm going to interview them. Like, I'm going to ask them whatever questions I want to ask them. And I think, sometimes I think people might feel shy or reserved about, asking someone questions, but you should drill into them. If you're going to give them money to them, you can ask them whatever the hell you want to ask them. So.
For sure. Yeah. I always wonder, I can't help but ask, what's the business equivalent of what you're talking about? So, setting up your personal finance with kind of your four different accounts, operating, savings, investment, what have you. What's the business equivalent of that? Because, God forbid there's another round of lockdowns, right? And people can't work, or, one of the big things in the news recently has been supply chain issues, right? So let's say for whatever reason, all the rubber from wherever rubber is made and all the machine parts coming from China all get stopped at the port, and like you guys literally don't have anything to sell. Like, what's the actual business equivalent of planning your finances for success in this very kind of tumultuous, uncertain environment we find ourselves politically, economically, supply chain, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So there's a great book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Have you read that?
Yeah. Excellent book.
Yep. So, I mean, honestly, part of my like system is basically developed off of what he has for businesses. And it's the same concept. We have multiple accounts set up. You have an operating account, a profit account, a tax account. And then as money comes in, you are taking the money out of your operating account and into your profit account. And you are also putting 30% or whatever into your tax account. And then you operate your business on less money. You know, the profit comes out first and you operate on what's left versus the traditional model is all the money comes into one. You spend what you spend and whatever's left is the profit. And his whole idea is if you take the profit out, you then, you know, it's like a tube of toothpaste. And like when the toothpaste is brand new and just open, you're a lot more generous with it versus like when it's almost empty, you were like using all your might to like roll it up and squeeze every last, you know, drop out of it. You know, we operate our business and our life like that too. If our, you know, the theory is your bank account only has so much money, you will figure out a way and be creative and be more motivated, whatever it is, to operate on it. And so, you know, we follow that. We've been following that for years. You know, it's been a great, you know, for us, even during the pandemic, you know, we just projected out what we needed. You know, at that point, we didn't even care about the profit. It was what's our break even? Like how much cash do we need to just survive here on, you know, on March 15th or whatever that day was that the world shut down. And then we just planned out from there. And so, I think a good idea on cash balance accounting, which is his whole model, is called bank balance accounting, which is how much is my bank account, how much can I survive on, versus, you know, traditional accounting. You're looking at P&Ls, which are, you know, 30, 45 days behind, a year behind. While bank balance accounting, look at your bank account is a forward-looking activity. And so anyway, profit first for anybody, I guess, in business who's looking to how do I manage my cash more efficiently, keep an eye on it. That would be my recommendation.
That's awesome. And what are you looking forward to as things kind of get back to normal? I know you're in the Philadelphia area, so I'm guessing it's a little bit slower in the winter for your guys' business, because like I know I would not want to stand outside a tire store waiting for my car if it's like 20 degrees. So what are you looking forward to, you know, as we kind of hopefully get back from normal to normal here? Obviously, you know, there's some good news on the horizon on kind of what's going on in the public health sector. But what are you looking forward to as we get into more of 2022?
For me personally, it's just getting back to normal life. I have a young girl at home, and, you know, we've been obviously very cautious with COVID and not wanting to put her at risk. So, you know, we're not seeing our friends. We don't really go out to eat. We're not going to, you know, sports events or traveling at all. So really it's just starting to be more social and getting out of the house more, I think is a big thing for us. And obviously as she gets older and just more resilient, you know, we'll be okay. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, it's and in the winter it's shut down even more. I mean, for our customers, it's fine because we have waiting rooms, you know, they're not outside, but just being outside, like it's, you know, obviously a lot more enjoyable than being 20 degrees inside.
Yeah. It just, every time I think about moving out of like California or the West Coast, I'm just like, oh, I'm really, really spoiled by the weather. Not that the taxes are kind of not making me think that it might be worth putting up with some cold, but I had some buddies who were like, hey man, we're going to do this retreat up in Boise. And I'm like, oh yeah, great. I got some old friends in Boise. I'll come up there. We'll do the thing. I'll visit some old friends. I'll bring my son. I'll do a whole father-son trip out of it. And then I was like, wait a minute. You guys want to do this in February? Isn't it like 12 degrees in Boise, Idaho right now in February? They're like, oh yeah. Sometimes it hits 0. I'm like, no, I'm out. Like I don't need to freeze my ass off that much. So yeah, different parts of the country for sure. Hey, last thought on, you know, going into 2022, like lot of concerns over rising interest rates. You know, again, real estate, whether it's the property syndication side and like apartment buildings or single family residence, feels expensive. You know, the stock market feels expensive. Gold's like the most expensive it's been in a long time. When you think about like, hey, our businesses are running smoothly, we're in expansions phase. Going forward, if you could kind of project into your crystal ball 2022, 2023, where are you and the Beers family investing? Is it in more growth of the business, or is it pulling out some cash and putting into some other asset class? Like where are you and the family kind of investing forward thinking, knowing that kind of like everything feels a little bit frothy, but there's also inflation, so we got to make money somewhere.
Yeah, I guess there's two components. One is, you know, if we can lock in long-term debt at low rates, you know, we're going to take advantage of that. And so a couple of the deals, you know, we're looking at are either, you know, seller finance locking in rates or some banks locking in rates. So number one, you know, if inflation, you know, with inflation, our prices rise, right? Our sales are going to be higher. locking in a debt payment to pay these things off. The margin on that is going to be better. So, we're doing that. We're starting to get into hard money lending, just as directly through some mortgage brokers that we know and just other people on our network where we were landlords on the residential side for a while, single family homes. I still got a 14 unit and another single family, but I'm just like not a good landlord. I don't like dealing with all the BS around it and maintenance calls and, but I like the money side of it and I like the finances. And so, we're starting to create just a little network of people that we know. And I've got we've got a good team of lawyers. So we have good protection on our documents. And, so anyway, we're investing our personal money there. We're talking about maybe creating a fund eventually to raise money and, pull together investor money to then go invest in loans. And, that's actually beneficial to a degree for rising interest rates. Cause as, the base rates rise, obviously the hard money, numbers are going to rise as well. Obviously the risk on that side is making sure we don't loan too much money, on values of properties that are currently at an all-time high. So,
right.
We got some things in there to protect ourselves, but we're investing there. Another one is infinite banking policy. I can touch on that real quick.
Yeah, go for it. I'd love to
as
hear.
a way to warehouse money. Do you have one?
I do not. It's not something I pulled the trigger on. So explain to the audience what that means, infinite banking.
Sure. Yeah. So like for most insurance, or almost every insurance, it's a cost. So like it's a necessary commodity of an expense, right? Whether it's car insurance or like term life insurance. Like I have a 15-year thing on me. If I die, like at least pay off my mortgage and pay for college for my kids and stuff. And so by default, insurance for the most part is like, not a good thing. But there's just this ability to use insurance as an investment vehicle through a whole life policy, and it's designed in a specific way. And one of the key terms they call it is infinite banking, or like be your own banker. Like anyway, it's something like that. And the idea is that instead of storing money in like a savings account, like with a traditional financial institution, you're storing your money inside of a life insurance policy, and that you have a fixed number that you have to put into this policy every year. Up to maximum. So like could be 10,000, could be 25,000, could be 50, could be 100. Like you pick the number that you were going to commit to say every year, I'm going to put whatever, $25,000 into this policy. And then you're going to have immediate access to a percentage of that. And like, let's say it's 20,000 the first year. So you give them 25, there's a cost obviously to it. And they're going to say, you've got $20,000 of cash in this policy, but you also have a death benefit of maybe whatever, $2 million. And then each year you're going to put 25,000 into it. And that cash value is going to start to grow. And so you start to get compound growth on the cash value. And it takes probably about 5 or 6 years for it to break even. So you put in, $250,000 is probably going to take about 5 to 6 years to have $250,000 of cash in there because of the kind of the commissions, the cost, but then it starts to grow. But what's cool about it is it can act like an investment vehicle, in that you can take that. So I put this money in, I have 250 grand after a number of years. I can take that money out and I can then go and invest it. I can do a loan at 15%. I can go and do a syndication at 20%. I can buy crypto. I mean, you can take the money out like it was one of your own bank accounts, and you can go and invest it, and that can earn money. And so over time, if you use it the right way, you get double compound growth, because you get your policy that's compounding growth through, the guaranteed growth plus the dividends of the policy. And then whatever you invest in, as long as you like take all the profits and you reinvest them, you're getting compound growth there. And then at the end of the day, you're going to die one day. It's guaranteed, right? And the policy is going to have a death benefit that is going to be significant. I mean, if it's $25,000 a year, I mean, that death benefit could be, 6 million, 8 million. I mean, by whatever it is, I don't, you'd have to look at it depending on what year it is. But every year, the death benefit's going to go up versus like a term policy, you're paying it and it's like a specific time and a specific dollar amount, where this policy every year, your death benefit's going up. And so how people structure these, is through like the transfer of wealth to their kids, where these death benefits are then tax-free, and you put it into a trust. And there's some ways you can handle it. But I mean, I have one on myself, my wife, and both my kids. And, the idea is that, over time, it's like, they're kind of like high yield savings account in your mind. That's how you have to think about it. Yeah. But you can access the money and then go and invest it. And so instead of it being like an either or question, it's kind of like a water filter. You pour water, the money into this policy that filters it, and then you use that filter as to fund your other deals.
And is the idea
so anyway?
Is the idea if I went on from now until I die when I'm 82 years old or whatever, and I'm borrowing back the 20,000 out of your 25,000 hypothetical, is the idea that I really never have to pay back that loan because when I die one day, the death benefit is going to pay back the money that I borrowed against it? So I'm not like making interest payments on the money that I'm pulling out. It's just going to get paid back to the financier at some point in the future with the death benefit.
Well, it depends how you do it. When you borrow the money from the policy, there is an interest cost to it. I mean, there's banks. So I set up one. Actually, it's set up this week where it's a line of credit through just a third party bank, not the insurance company. And so, I put my policies up as collateral. They give me a line of credit for the cash value, and then I can access the cash value at, right now it's Wall Street prime minus 0.5%. So it's like whatever 3.25%. And so I have to borrow my own money at 3.25%. So I have a cost to that. However, the policy is still growing at, I think it's right now 5.75%. So the policy is growing at 5.75%. I'm borrowing at, whatever 3.25%. So I still have a net gain of 2.5% on my own money, even though I haven't even taken it out of the policy. I'm just using it as collateral to then go and invest it. But you are right though. So I can borrow my money through this line of credit. I can invest it. I never actually have to pay back the principal. You can obviously, but one day, you're going to die. And when you die, the death benefit, the portion that you owe that third party bank is just going to get paid out then.
Yeah, amazing. So the bank's winning because they're making 3.5% easy money on something that's 100% guaranteed, because as long as the life insurance policy is still in place and you die, which, spoiler alert, on a long enough timeline, everybody's life expectancy is over. So they're going to get their money back. You get to borrow against your own assets at just an amazing cost, and then go presumably reinvest that money in something that can make you 7, 8, 9, 10%, something to that effect. That's a great deal.
Yep, that's the idea. And the way I wrap my head around it, and this took me like a year, plus, like this is the first time you're hearing about it. Like nobody gets it on the first time. And, this is to think about it like it's a house, like a rental property that you own, where, the death benefits like the value of the home, right? And the cash value is like the equity. So when if you own each year, right, you can access more equity as your property appreciates. Mm-hmm. And then when you die, like you don't get the equity plus the value of the house, right? You get kind of the net on it. And so it's a similar concept where the money that you're accessing is like tapping that home equity line of credit instead of, but it's just the life and policy is on your life and not obviously a house. So.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that stuff. It's so funny. It doesn't take a whole lot of education to figure out all the tricks of like, I think your average person sitting around who's not particularly motivated to actively manage their money is like, well, the rich just get richer. There's all this stuff they can do that I can't do. And yes, that's true. If you're not making $250,000, there are some things that the SEC limits you from being able to do. You can't invest in property syndications, and there are some things that are off the table if you're not a high wage earner. But something like this, that you can start an insurance policy for a couple $1,000s a year, something like this is accessible to anybody, and it just takes some education. And like you said, something I really appreciate that you said is like, if you're working so actively on making your money, why wouldn't you work as actively in managing it, right? Because
100%. And this is just a tool in your belt, like to use. And, even if, I do invest in stocks. I invest in kind of a 3-fund portfolio mindset, which is the idea of you've got really just 3 funds: a domestic, like total stock market, international, and a bond fund. And you don't pick stocks. You just each week put whatever. And, so for me, I'm now replacing the bond like fund with this whole life policy. Cause the bonds are going to pay what, 2%, 1.5% right now.
Yeah.
Where this insurance policy is going to pay 5.75%. So much better. And so, really I'm just gonna have a 2-fund portfolio of, plus then the insurance policy is going to make up, the difference of that pie. And so there's a lot of different ways, you can fit it into like, where does this fit in your portfolio? But in terms of building cash value, it's also protected from creditors, life insurance policies, and which is another benefit. Plus, it's the dividends that you get, all those gains are not taxed, and the death benefit, if done correctly, is also not taxed. So.
Amazing, man. Cool. Well, I got two final questions for you. One, this is just kind of, maybe I should start leading the podcast with this, Chris, to like get to know you. Favorite movie and why? I'm a big movie junkie, and so I feel like you can learn a lot about a person when you find out what their favorite movie is and why.
Oh man, put me on the spot. I'm not a big movie junkie. I saw, have you seen it's on Netflix. It's called Don't Look Up. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent movie.
Recently one. I thought that one was excellent. I haven't seen many movies lately, but I thought that one was really funny in the current political environment of everything. And so, and then at the end, was awesome. But
yeah, the ending of the movie.
Anyway, I thought that, not that we don't want to like spoil alert it, but, anyway, I would say that one is probably one of the funniest movies I think I've watched in a while. That was like, truly had me laughing. So
it was excellent. It was excellent. And then last question. This is a little different since we already kind of talked about what you're looking forward to getting back to. How does your family deal with all of this, or kind of what is your guidelines for making sure that like, hey, I'm working in this, I'm helping grow the business, I'm trying to learn about my money, I go to these mastermind groups, and then I know in my relationship, I'm projecting here obviously, when we're really stressed out in business and side projects and mastermind retreats and stuff, sadly the person that gets the short end of the stick is my wife. So how are you balancing that family equation? I know you mentioned you have a young daughter. How are you balancing all of that so it's not like, great, I built all this wealth, we have a crushing business, and now I got to write a check to my wife for half of it because like I haven't been honoring my family? How do you balance that side of it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think a big problem for a lot of entrepreneurs who are workaholics. I know for many years that was me and her. When she had her had a job, we were both working so much, and it was like. But then when you reflect on it, and like at the end of the day, the entire reason I'm working is to like for my family, right? Is to create, generational wealth, give us flexibility to travel and just do whatever we want. And I think you got to step back and kind of look at that and think about that, and then be honest with yourself to say, hey, I say I'm doing all this, because of my family, but am I representing that? Am I actually like, taking the time freedom to send quality time? And when I'm present, am I actually like present? And so a couple of things, I is work on is that's one of them. And I have two daughters, one's 5 years old, the other's almost 8 months old. And one of them's when I'm playing with them, I want to be 100% present, and I don't want to be on my phone. I don't want to be distracted. Right. And I think that's a big one because, work follows us everywhere we go. And I think trying to, disconnect from the time I walk through the door, that, I try to plug my phone in. I try not to look at it, and I try not to let, work boil over. Another one is I don't, not to say I don't work Fridays, but I work, I'm home all Fridays for the most part, where, that's kind of the family day where I can really help with the kids, and my wife, can have some more time, to do some personal stuff. And, I think it's just being recognizing, what are, and talking to your wife, and sitting down, setting some family goals together, and say, hey, what's working, what do we got to improve on? And I think just open communication. And I know there's plenty of things I could do better, and I know I need to be a better listener. And sometimes, so many things going through your head, right, that sometimes you're not listening all the time. And I'm working on that, but I think it's just acknowledging it. You really got to do a better job, and then just every day working on it.
That's cool, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you being on. I want to hear, later on in the year as you've acquired, 4 or 5, 10, 20, 30 more stores. I'm going to read that book for sure on what it takes. So I appreciate you being on. Let us know when you can come back as a follow-up guest, and I'll have Chris get in touch with you so we can get you an official, On the Edge podcast hat.
Yeah, there we go.
This will probably, for context, we're recording this in January of 2022. We're actually way ahead of schedule for the first time ever in the podcast. So this will probably drop around March, and we'll let you know when everything's out, man. Thanks for being on the show.
That's awesome.
All right,
cool.
Later.
Well, thanks for having me.